Hello everyone and welcome. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to design a website using Photoshop. So this is the final design that we're aiming to design in today's tutorial. So let me just explain what is going on here. So we started off with two images. So I blended these two images together in Photoshop and added a color on top of this. As we scroll down here, we also use what are known as clipping masks to have these images right in their position. And as I scroll down here, we also create a contact page. And we also added an image here. Now, as you can see, this is a website which you can use for, let's say, a small business, a design agency, or whatever it is. But as you're designing this, the most important to take away from this tutorial is the techniques that I use to put this together. So you can go in and exchange these images with your images and customize this to whatever your type of project you're designing. Now, the reason why it's important to know how to lay out your websites in Photoshop is because there might be cases where you might need to show a mock-up before you actually go into the development stage of the web design. So it is very important to understand the techniques. And also, I forgot to mention, if you'd like to use this layout in your own designs, I will include a link to the website where you can download this layout. So you can go ahead, use it, and all the images I used in this tutorial can be found on Pixelscom. Again, these are royalty-free images. You can use them in your own projects, and I will show you where to get them as well throughout the tutorial. So let's dive in and let's get started. So all the images that I use throughout this tutorial can be found on Pixelscom. So this is the website. You can actually go and download these images and use them in your own projects. They're free to use. Okay, so what I did to make things easier for me was to come in here and do a quick search. So for example, when I needed that large image, I just came in and searched for city. And if I do that, just like any other search engine, these are the images that come up. So what I've done ahead of time is I've gone ahead and downloaded all the images that I need to use throughout the project. So let's go into Photoshop and let's get started. So we are going to start off by creating a new document. So I'm going to come over here to the top and click on File, New. Our dimensions for this project are going to be 1920, 3400. So I'm going to click on Create. Okay, so to zoom in, all you need to do is to press Command plus like that a few times, and then that allows you to zoom in. Or if you're on a PC, all you need to do is to click on Control plus. Okay, so now I'm going to start off by adding my rulers. So I'm going to press Command R like that. Now I have my rulers. And just to make sure that this is set to pixels, I'm just going to right click, and right here you can see this check mark on pixels. So this is great. Now it's time to pull my guides. So I'm just going to click in there in the rulers and drag until I get to about, say, 800 like that. So that's looking great. The next thing I'm going to do now is to add a brand new layer. So I'm going to come to the bottom right here, click this layer button. So now I've got my layer added. The next thing I'm going to do now is to add a rectangle. Now the reason why we're adding this very early on is because we're going to be using this as a clipping mask. And I'll also explain how that works. Okay, so that's my first rectangle, which is great. Next, I'm going to add a few more rectangles where our images are going to go. So I'm just going to come over here, click this again one more time, and then just draw my rectangle like that. Okay. Now, the other way that you could actually make this faster for you is to just click, press down the Option key or Alt key, and then just drag. Now, by doing that, it just makes a duplicate of that shape. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is to hit Command T. Now, this is a free transform shortcut. So this allows me to resize this the way I want. So now that I've got that in place, I'm just going to hit Enter. And then I'm going to do this one more time. I know you're probably wondering, why am I adding all these shapes? It will make times very soon. Okay, so this top image here, just to make sure that they're the same size, I'm just going to hit Command T so I can transform it. Okay, so that looks great. Now I need to add one more rectangle here. So my space doesn't look right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my rulers one more time to the left and the right. So I'm just going to drag it over here like that. Okay, so I'm happy with that where that is. I'm going to drag another one like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that all the content that I'm creating is going to be within these boundaries. Okay, so now I'm going to select all my shapes by pressing down the shift key and clicking on all of them. Now you can see all the way over here to the right that they're all selected. So now I can hit Command T for my free transform and just resize them one more time. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to commit and press enter. Okay, so I'm going to need one more shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the shape, hit the hold down the Alt key, and then just drag it. Now, as I mentioned before, this creates a duplicate. And then to resize it, I'm going to hit Command T to free transform, and then I'm just going to drag it like that. So now this has given us the shape that we need, and this is where all our images are going to go. So now I'm just going to hit enter. So far I'm happy with that. This is looking really good. Next, what I'm going to do is to start bringing all my images in. So I'm going to start by bringing in my images for the hero area. So let's go ahead and do that. So my images here are in my downloads folder, as you can see here. So all I have to do now is to just go through these and make sure I choose the right one. So this is the first one I need. I'm just going to drag this like that. And as you can see, it's now on my canvas. I'm just going to hit enter for now. Next, I'm going to drag my second image. So I'm just going to search for it. And it's the lady on the computer. Actually, as a quick tip, what you may want to do is when you download these images, it's a good idea that you name them, because as you can see, cycling through this actually wastes a lot of time. Okay, so I have my two images that I need now. All I have to do is to drag them into position. So I'm going to drag the first one here to the top like that. And then I'm going to drag the second one. Okay. Now I need to resize them because right now they're too big. I'm just going to hit Command T. If you're on a PC, it's Control T. And that allows you to get the free transform. And then just hold the Shift key and then just grab one of the corners and just drag it like this. Now this allows you to get the size that you need. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to commit and hit enter. And then I'm going to come over here to the second image. And so as you can see here, as I'm clicking this, it's allowing me to click my second image. So again, I'm going to hit Command T to resize it. I'm going to resize it by holding the Shift key just to make sure that I have the aspect ratio correct. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to hit enter. Now it's time to merge these images together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and click even this top one right here, add a layer mask. So I'm going to click this button right here at the bottom to add my layer mask. And then I need to select my brush tool. So to do that, you can just press B like that. And then now we need to increase the size by hitting the right bracket key. So I'm just going to do this a few times like that. And then if I click on this image here, you can see it's revealing what's in the background. So what you may want to do if you don't have the blend looking correct is to hit the X key. Now this allows you to paint back the information that you need. So as you can see here, I'm painting back the computer part, which I had lost. And then if I hit the X key, it allows me to, again, paint it back in like that. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead now and save my document. So I'm just going to hit Command S. So you can name this document whatever you want. So I'm just going to call this Demo Layout 1. Okay, I'm going to save it. So that's looking pretty cool. So what I'm going to do next is to name my layers, because by doing that, it makes it easier for me to find out what I'm looking for. So right now, I'm just going to double click here and just call this Hero Back Solid. So now I know what that is. And now what I need to do is to drag these two images, this one here of the city and the one of the lady, above this Hero Solid Black. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, excellent. And then what I need to do now is to click once on this image above and create a clipping mask. So to create that, I need to hold down the Option key or the Alt key, and then just click between those two layers and do it again on the top one. So these two images now are clipped onto this shape. Okay, so that's looking great. What I need to do next is to select these two images, and then I'm going to merge them. So the shortcut to merge is Command E. So I'm just going to do that. So now we can see that this image now is combined. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to remove the color from this image. And to do that, I'm going to press Shift Command U. Okay, so that makes it black and white. Now I'm able to add a brand new layer and fill that layer with a color, and that's going to give us our tint that we need for this image. So the color I'm going to use here is just a blue. So I'm just going to come over here and choose my blue. Now it doesn't really matter what shade it is. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to fill that shape with this color. So this is the shape that this is the layer, and make sure you're selecting the right layer. So I'm going to hit Command Backspace. So now if I do that, you can see it's picked up our white color. So what you want to do is to hit Alt Backspace. So now this color has covered everything. So because we created a clipping mask earlier on, what we could actually do is we could allow this color only to affect that top part of our website, which is the hero area. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and press between the two layers. Now you see it's only affecting the top part. And this is the power of using clipping masks. Excellent. So what I'm going to do now is as this layer is selected, I'm going to play around now with my blending modes. So I'm going to click normal. I'm going to try multiply and see how that looks. Okay, it's not too bad, but it's a bit too dark. So I'm going to come over here to lighten. That's actually pretty cool. But before we settle on a specific one, we might as well go and start taking a look at the rest of them. Okay, that's not too bad as well. I kind of like this one actually. So what you could also do as well, if these blending modes are not working, you can actually come here and leave it, set it to normal, and then just reduce the opacity right here. Now, by reducing the opacity, it allows you to see a bit of the image. So I think this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave that at 90%. So we have an idea of what is happening here in the background, which is really cool. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now it's time to add my information on the page. So I'm going to come over here on this text tool, and then I'm going to add my links to my page. So I'm going to start off with adding my home, about us, services, clients, and then finally contacts. Now I know right now we can't see what we are typing because the color of the text is pretty much the same as the background. So I'm going to come over here once all this text is selected, click here on the top, and I'm just going to choose my color like that and click yes. Okay, so I can see here I have some spelling mistakes. That's because I couldn't see what I was typing. Okay, so I'm going to click the type tool again and then just go in and fix that. Okay, so next I'm going to need my title for the hero image. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this text that I've used here by duplicating it. So I'm just going to hold down my Option key and then just drag like that. Select my type tool and then just highlight the text, delete all that, and then paste my text that I need to use. So I'm going to paste my text like that. So this is the title of the text I'm going to use for my hero image. So I'm just going to drag it into position, making sure it doesn't go beyond these guidelines. Next, I'm going to add some more text. So I'm just going to come over here and just drag a box like that. And then I'm going to paste my text in here. Now the text I'm using here is just some dummy text, but you need to get your proper text for your website. Okay, let's fix our navigation. So I'm going to come over here, select my type tool, and then I'm going to select all my text, come over here. Now the font I'm going to use here is going to be a bit different. I prefer using DIN. Okay, so I'm going to select my font here and then reduce the size by just clicking the slider here at the top, like that. I think 48 is fine, but I can always go back in and make my adjustments. Right, in fact, that's a bit too much. I'm going to go in and reduce my size to maybe about 38. Okay, so that's looking much better. Right, So what I need to do next here is to add a button, our call to action button. So I'm going to come over here, select my rectangle tool, and then I'm just going to draw my button like that, making sure you don't set it too big. Right, so I'm happy with that. Then next, I'm just going to add my text. So I'm just going to say, learn more. That. Let's make it slightly bigger. So just select all the text. And then over here, just drag this until you're happy with the size. So I think 46 is perfect. I'm going to now drag it into position like that. So that's my call to action button. So you can see now that this is all taking shape. Now, let's say you want to remove those guides. All you have to do is to hit Command : like that. If you're on a PC, it's Control : and then to zoom in, you want to hit Command+. Okay. And then to zoom further in, again, you can just do that one more time. So now you can see it's really filling our space. Okay, that's really cool. That's 200%. Okay, so if you want to go back, you just hit Command-, and then this brings you back a little bit. Okay, so that's looking great. All I have to do now is to add my logo. Now, I already have a logo saved here on my computer. So I'm just going to come over here and drag this logo into my document. So I'm just going to drag it and then let go. And then all I have to do now is to bring it into position. And our shortcut for resizing things is Command-T. That's our free transform. Hold down the Shift key and then just drag one of the corners and then just drag it until you're happy with the size. So I think I'm happy with that. I'm just going to commit by hitting Enter. Okay, that's looking great. Now, let's put back our guides by hitting Command: Now, this is mainly because I want to be precise and make sure that everything is in line. Okay, so now that we have the hero part of our website designed, what we need to do now is to go ahead and group all our elements. Now, the reason why we're grouping all our elements is because we don't want our layers to be so long and very confusing. So this allows us to just make order of all our layers. So I'm going to start clicking everything that I need. So I'm going to hold on the Command key and then click all my elements like that. And as you can see here in the layers, everything is being selected. So now that everything is selected, I'm also going to come over here and select my hero background. Okay, so I think I have everything selected. Now to group everything that I've just selected, all you have to do is to hit Command-G or Control-G on a PC. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So now we can see that our group has been selected. All I have to do now is to name it. So I'm going to name this hero in caps like that. And then I'm going to drag this all the way down here and then lock it. Because every time I click here, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm selecting things while I'm working on other parts of my website. Okay, so now that it's selected, or to lock it, all I have to do is to click this lock icon here. So now if I start clicking here, nothing gets selected. Excellent. So now let's work on our second part, which is the portfolio. So I'm going to come over here, grab my type tool, and then just type our work like that. Now let's choose the color of our font. So I'm going to come over here to the top and click right here and select my color. So I can either choose this color right here, but I prefer going with gray. So this is how you can just choose the color that you need for all your section and also your text. So I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to drag this into position. Okay, so I think I'm happy with that right there. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a line just under this title. So I'm going to come over here to my tool, rectangle tool, and then just draw it right here like that. Excellent. Okay, now it's time to add our images for our portfolio. So I'm just going to rearrange things a little bit. Just drag this up a bit like that because it's too further down. So in a moment, you're going to realize how important it is to use these clipping masks. Okay, so now it's time to drag our images onto our canvas. So I'm going to start off with my first image. I'm going to drag it like that. And then I'm just going to hit enter. So now it's on my canvas. The next thing I'm going to do now is to use my clipping masks and make sure that this image is in my rectangle. So to do that, I'm going to hold the Alt key and hit my button right here between the two layers. And then now I can position it and resize it as well. So to resize it, all you have to do is to hit Command T. And then now I can resize it until I'm happy with the size. Okay, great. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. So that's our first image. Now, let's say you want to resize this and you're not happy with the dimensions of this rectangle. What you can also do is you can rearrange this and actually change the size. So let me go ahead and do that quickly because right now we're not seeing much of that image. So to do that, I'm going to hit Command T while I'm selecting my black rectangle here. And then I'm just going to drag it right now like that. And now you can see we're seeing more of this image. Okay, so that's a quick way of readjusting the sizes of your images. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add my next image. So I'm going to drag this into position like that. For now, I'm just going to hit enter. And then I'm going to make sure I select my rectangle, which I need to add my clipping masks to. So I'm going to click here on the rectangle so I can see it's right here. And my image is above. So I'm just going to drag this so that the image is right above the rectangle that I need to do my clipping mask on. That is very, very important. So I'm going to hit Command T. And then I'm going to resize my image like that. So once my image is in position, all I have to do now is to hit enter and then add my clipping mask. So I'm going to hold down my Option key or Alt key. Now you can see that my image is now in position. So you can just go in and then drag it and make sure that it's in the right place. Great. So go ahead and do that for the next one. So right now I've selected my rectangle. So now I'm going to go and drag my image into place. Okay, so that's my image. Drag it into position. So we don't need to do a lot of resizing here. So all I have to do is to add my clipping mask. I'm going to hold down my Option key or Alt key like that. And that is right there in position. Great. Now we have one final image that we need to add to our portfolio. So I'm going to click on the rectangle. And as you can see here, it's not the right size. So I'm going to fix that straight away. So I'm going to hit Command T to get my transform tool and then just resize it until I'm happy with the size. Okay, so I think that's great. I'm going to hit enter to commit to that. Now let's add our image. Okay, so this is the image that we're going to use. I'm going to drag it onto my canvas like that. And then I'm just going to resize it. Hit enter. And then over here on my layers, I'm going to come over here and add my clipping mask. I'm going to hold down the Option key or Alt key like that. And now we can see that this is really taking shape. I'm really pleased with that. So that's looking great. So now we've covered our hero area. And then on the bottom here, we've also done our portfolio area. Now let's add some buttons which show that this could be something you can click on and also expand. So we need to add an icon. But before we add the icon, I just need to make sure that all my layers are in place. So I can see here that this is my first layer, which is good, great. And then, okay, so everything in right here is fine. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to create my shape by adding a new layer. And then I'm going to come over here and just make sure that this color right here, my foreground color is set to black like that. Okay. Now I'm going to come over here to my shape tool. I'm going to click and hold it down so I can choose my ellipse tool. And then over here, I'm going to draw a perfect circle. Now to do that, you need to hold the Shift key. Okay, like that. So that's the size I need, about 60. I'm going to let go. Great. And then what I need to do next is to add my plus symbol. So I'm going to click here on my text. And then I'm going to add a plus by holding on to Shift plus. Now this color needs to be white. So I've selected it. And then on the top here, I am going to make sure that this is set to white, like that. And then I'm going to zoom in by pressing Command plus. And then I'm just going to drag this into position like that. So that's looking great. So what I'm going to do now, because I'm going to use this over and over again, is to come over here to my ellipse, which is the circle, reduce the opacity a bit. Okay, because we don't want it too bright. So let's leave it at 60%. And then I'm going to select these two, the plus and the circle. Now with those two selected, I'm going to right click and then I'm going to convert this into a smart object. So I'm going to select smart object and then I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this icon. So all we have to do now is to duplicate it. Now, if you recall, the option to duplicate this is by holding the Alt key. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key as I'm dragging it. And then I'm just going to place this into position like that. And then one more time here on the shoes like that. Okay, so that's looking great. I'm really happy with that. Now let's go ahead and group these one more time and name these portfolio. So I'm going to come down here to my first rectangle, hold down the Shift key and go all the way up. Now this selects everything. So all I have to do now is to hit Command G to group them. Now I'm going to name this portfolio. Perfect. So now you can see if I disable this, it disables everything. Okay, so that means everything here is grouped into this folder called portfolio. Again, as I did before, I might as well lock this. So I'm going to come over here to my lock and lock it. Okay, so our page is really taking shape. I'm really pleased with this. Now it's time to add the other section, which is the section which is going to have our contact information and our footer. Okay, so let's start by adding a rectangle. So I'm going to come over here to my shape tool, select rectangle, and then I'm just going to draw it right here like that. Now, when it comes to the color, we need to choose a color that works with our site that we're designing. So I'm going to come over here and click my foreground color and select a color from here and then click OK. Okay, so I think I'm happy with this color. I'm going to go ahead with that. So I'm just going to make sure that I don't have any white spaces. Great. So what I'm going to start off by doing is adding our title to this. So I'm going to come over here and just click on my type tool and then just add support like that. I've selected it all. Come over here to the top and then just change my color by just drag it in here in the swatches. Click OK. So now you can see our text is there. Great. Just going to bring it down a little bit. Okay, so I can see here that we are going to need a bit more space because our height here is not enough for what we're going to design. So I'm going to come over here to my crop tool. And then I'm just going to drag this further down like that. Just a little bit more. And then hit enter. Okay, so now you can see that I've added more space right here to the footer. Okay, great. So I'm going to resize this space one more time by hitting Command T. And then I'm just going to drag this until I'm happy with where it's at. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way like that and then hit enter to commit to that. Okay, so now as we did here on the top, I just need to add a line just below this word support. So again, I'm going to come back over here, click the rectangle tool, and then I'm just going to draw it like that. Choose my color. Click OK. Right, so now that I have that in place, it's time now to add our form. So now I need to make sure that all my proportions are in line with what we've already built here. So let me add one more line, guideline. So I'm going to drag it all the way here until I get to this position. And then I'm going to drag another one like that. Great. So now we can add all our elements right in here. So I'm going to start off by adding a rectangle. So I'm going to click here on the rectangle tool, select it, and then I'm going to start drawing all my fields. Okay, so that's my first field. I'm just going to resize it and make sure that it's got the right size. Okay, that's great. Now, the most important thing at this stage is to make sure that the colors that I'm going to use here work well with my palette. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to double click here on the layer. In fact, I have to hit enter first and then double click on the layer. And then I'm going to try and select my color and see what color works. So right now I'm here in my color picker and I think I'm happy with this. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, right? So now I can duplicate these as many times as I need because I've already selected the color that I need. So I'm going to hold down the Option key and then just drag like that. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, so that's looking great. In fact, I need to resize this. So I'm going to hold the one of the corners and just drag it like that. Hit enter. And then I need one more field. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key and then drag again like that. And then finally, I need the button. So again, I'm going to hold the Alt key, drag it, and then I'm going to hit Command T to resize this. Okay, so I'm really happy with the size now. I'm going to let go and hit enter. The only thing I need to do now with this last one that we just added, because this is a button, I need to make sure that I add my color straight away. So I'm going to come over here, double click on that layer and select my red like that, and then click OK. Right, so I'm pretty cool with that. Now it's time to add all my fields, the name of my field. So I'm going to come over here and hit my type tool. And then I'm just going to start naming them. So the first one here is going to be name. I'm going to drag it into position. Now, this color here is not really working because it is too white. So I'm going to dim it down a bit by reducing the opacity because we don't want this right in your face. So let's bring it down to about, say, 54%. Okay, so that's looking much better. I'm going to hold down this and then duplicate it one more time like that. In fact, I might as well just duplicate it and then just go back in and rename all of them. Okay, so now that I have all that duplicated, I'm going to come over here and just rename them. So this one here can be surname, but bear in mind that you can always go in and name these whatever you want. So let's say this one here is some security code. That I'm just going to add security code. And then the last one here could be email. I'm going to position this, make sure it's centered and everything is in line. Okay, so that's looking great. And then finally, we need to add some text to the button. So I'm going to hold Alt key and then just drag my text in here like that. Now, because this is a button, we need to make sure that our call to action is nice and clear. So instead of having the opacity at 54%, I'm going to increase that all the way to 100%. And then we're just going to say send. Like that. So far, so good. Now we need to add a picture of our support guy. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to come over here and select my rectangle tool and then just draw a rectangle like that. Now, by the way, it doesn't have to be black. In fact, I should have mentioned this in the beginning. This could be white. It could be any color. The most important thing is just making sure that you can do a clipping mask onto this. Okay, so now that I have that selected, the next thing we need to do now is to add our image, and then we're going to create a clipping mask. So first of all, my image is right here at the top. I'm going to drag it all the way here on my canvas. Okay, I'm going to resize it by holding one of the corners and holding down the Shift key. That I'm going to hit enter to commit to that. And then making sure that my image here is above the rectangle, I'm going to add my clipping mask by holding down the Option key or Alt key between the two layers and then clicking between the two layers. So now we can see it's right in position like that. So that's looking really cool. I'm really happy with that. So let's go ahead now and add the footer part of our page. So to do that, I need to add a line which just separates my content here from the footer. So let's start by coming over here to the shape tool and then clicking the line tool. So I'm going to click and drag. Now, if you want this to be in a straight line, hold down the Shift key and then just drag like that. And then let go. And then to change the color, you need to double click the shape layer. And then you can come in and change the color to whatever color you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by selecting my background color here and then making it lighter. So I think I'm happy with this. Click OK. Now we can add the footer information. I'm just going to click this type tool, add my text. Of course, you can add whatever you want on the footer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add the pages on my menu. And then finally, contact. Right, so as you can see, this text is way too big. We need to reduce the size to about, let's say, even 20. Okay, like that. And then I'm just going to drag this into position. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So as you can see here, our page is way too long. So I can reduce that by coming back over here to our crop tool. And then I'm just going to drag one of the corners here and just drag it up to about that position. Hit enter. So this is now our final size, which I'm happy with. Okay, so let's do final tweaks to this. So over here at the top, I can see my logo is way too big. So I'm just going to resize that. In fact, if you've noticed, I wasn't able to select it. So that means that I need to come back over here and remove the lock. Okay, so I'm going to resize this. That, hit enter. The text seems fine. And now it's aligned. Okay, that's looking great. So if you want to remove your guidelines, all you have to do is to hit Command:. So that removes them. And then if you want to preview this, you can hit Command F like that. So this is our final design. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and do also go on wpusertv.com and subscribe to the mailing list. By doing so, you'll be updated when I release new tutorials, and also you'll be eligible for discounts on my courses. Until next time, thanks for watching and see you soon.